Hi everyone, welcome to our Meet CodeX event. My name is Roland Vogl. I'm Executive Director of CodeX, the Stanford Center for Legal Informatics. And I just want to get started with a quick introduction about our center. And then I want to talk about a couple of trends that we're seeing in a legal market, legal services market, and also in legal technology. And just to kind of provide a very kind of brief primer, because I think there's some people who've been in the legal tech field for a long time, and some people who are kind of new to the field. So I just want to provide you a quick overview. Oh, hey Dan, good. And then I will turn it over to some of our fellows who will talk about their projects, and then we'll just open it up for discussion. All right, so first, what is CodeX? So CodeX is a research center here at the university. We were started about 10 years ago. We are a joint center between the Stanford Law School and the Computer Science Department. We are also, I would call us an innovation network. There's a group of people who are friends of the center who are, in my opinion, really driving or sort of leading the pack of legal innovation at this moment. And obviously, I'm very biased, but I think you will see when we hear from some of our fellows, really, you will get a sense for the kind of exciting and interesting work they're doing. Come on in. Our mission is to research and develop the technologies that make the legal system more efficient. We always make a big point out of wanting to make the system more efficient for all stakeholders, not just the legal profession. There is a lot of interest now in using technology to make law firms more efficient, but that has to do with a whole lot of changes in the environment that the law firms are surrounded with. But we have at our core also this desire really to increase access to justice. Our motto is legal empowerment through information technology, and we see really technology coming to the legal system from all sides, and for us to kind of make sense of what's going on in the field, we've created these three buckets, if you wish, which are legal information retrieval, legal infrastructure, and computational law. So legal information retrieval is basically where we use computers to get to the legal information in a faster and better and cheaper way. And think of legal research, electronic legal research as an example, or e-discovery. Here the computer really doesn't understand the legal concepts. It just brings the legal information to the human user in a better and more efficient way. Legal infrastructure are technologies that are connecting the stakeholders in the legal system in a new way. And think about all these new marketplaces where clients can find lawyers and these kind of legal matchmaking services. And then computational law is based on what we call the explicit representation of law in computable form. This is where computers can really understand and work with the legal concepts, and we can automate and mechanize certain legal processes. The classic example that everyone understands easily in this country is TurboTax. That's a software that has the tax code built into it, and that can use facts about the user's, whatever, marital status and income and so on to come to a legal conclusion, which is, how much does the user need to pay in taxes or is owed in taxes by the government. So that's computational law. Computational law is also, various other areas of the law, smart contracts and so on, other areas where computational law is really coming. Okay, so our core research projects, I won't talk too much about that, but our core projects are in the computational law area, computable contracts area, and also smart prosecution. And we'll hear from Nicole in just a little bit more about the smart prosecution initiative. And yeah, I can talk then more about computational law and computable contracts, but we'll hear then from our fellows and learn more about their work. All right, so CodeX, I mentioned already, we're also a kind of network of innovators in legal tech. We have a couple of core projects that came out of CodeX, that are projects that were developed, that came out of research that CodeX has conducted, and that found their way into the marketplace. And the first one, the first spin-off from Stanford Law School is Lex Machina, which is really Professor Lemley's brainchild. It became a startup. It was really sort of a trailblazer in the area of big data law. CIPX for higher education. It's a copyright technology that we developed at CodeX that also became a spin-off and was acquired. Actually, I should have mentioned that Lex Machina was just acquired by LexisNexis last year. CIPX was also acquired last year by a publishing company called ProQuest. Then Ravel is a new search technology for the law, using a new kind of visual, new kind of data visualization technologies to make sort of connections between cases more intuitive, more understandable. Legal.io, we'll hear from Tony and Pieter. Case text, we have Jake and Pablo here. Will tell us more about case text. LexCheck, which is a technology that helps lawyers draft better agreements, avoid drafting mistakes. Fair Document is a practice management system for initially for attorneys in the estate planning field. Beagle, contract analysis technology. Alt Legal is an IP technology. And so those are all companies that are started by people who are affiliated with CodeX as entrepreneurial fellows, and they work on their own research projects together with CodeX. So for all this kind of activity around CodeX, we've been called the Vortex for legal tech startups, and we've also received an Innovators Award, both for our research, but also the work that some of our entrepreneurial fellows are conducting. So we're very proud of that, and so I keep showing this slide. But anyway, so I think there's a lot happening, and I just want to talk a little bit about sort of different phases of innovation in legal. My colleague Oliver Goodenough, who's a visiting associated faculty with CodeX, he used the classic 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 categories to explain how technology is really coming to the legal field and what it is doing to the legal profession coming in. So at 1.0, he's talking about technologies where the technology is empowering people in the current system. So the example would be how email came to the legal profession and how lawyers would start using email for communication. So it's been arguably making lawyers more efficient, but it hasn't changed the way that the law firm works or that legal services are delivered. 2.0 is where technology replaces an increasing number of people in the current system. So the classic example here is these e-discovery technologies, predictive coding, where these technologies can go through massive amounts of information, massive amount of data in a much better way and more efficient way than fleets, the fleets of lawyers that would do that kind of work previously could do. And so here we see technology replacing people in legal. And 3.0 is where technology is basically resulting in a radical redesign or full replacement of the current system. So currently all the talk outside of legal is about the self-driving car. Think about how the self-driving car is replacing the human driver as the core person in transportation. And so do these technologies sort of challenge the concept of the lawyer, the human lawyer, as the key figure in the delivery of legal services. So So, smart contracts, computable contracts is one example for those technologies. Richard Susskind and his son wrote a book recently where they kind of expand the focus from just the legal profession to all professions, teachers, journalists, medical professionals. And he's suggesting that the professions are going through, in his scenario 1, to a set of familiar changes. So basically standardizing, systematizing their activities and streamlining the old ways of working. In his scenario 2, he talks about a transformation in the way that expertise of professionals is made available in society, and where very capable AI systems are displacing more and more traditional work. And he sees those two scenarios kind of go in tandem, but in the long run, he sees scenario 2 as dominating. All right, so what are some of the market trends that we're seeing? So I think it's fair to say that over the last decade or so, there's been this kind of continuous crisis rhetoric in legal. And also Richard Susskind wrote a book called The End of Lawyers, and he also suggests that only the best lawyers are going to survive, but they will make more through volume and automation. And there were some objective indicators that there's instability in the business law sector. We saw some firms close shop, senior partners laid off, associates laid off, lateral movement of superstar lawyers, kind of reduced recruitment of new lawyers, and we also saw a dip in law school applications. And that's been, it's sort of, law school applications are on their way back up, but they're not anywhere near the high of a couple of years ago. And then there's an access to justice crisis in the country. A recent report by the ABA, the Commission on the Future of Legal Services in the United States, actually found that there are these it's not them who found it, but they highlighted this as a huge problem for the society, that there are large swaths of society not having access to the law because they can't afford it, or they don't know they have a legal problem. And at the same time, there are overcapacities of lawyers in a society. So there's this weird paradox, and it's a big problem. So anyways, we see, certainly since the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, a flattening in demand for law firm services. Definitely it's been, over the last couple of years, it's been flat. This, also this report, the report on the state of the legal market by Georgetown University really shows that, demand for law firm services has been flat. And so there's different theories around, why that is. In my opinion, the most credible theory is that, there's a whole bunch of new players in the legal services market. So we have, first of all, it's the corporations, the corporate law departments that are competing more with law firms now. They are insourcing more and more legal work. There's so-called alternative business structures. There are the regional and the smaller firms that are now competing with the large firms. There is legal process outsourcers, e-discovery companies, a whole bunch of new players on the market that are competing with law firms. And so just to focus in on technology, as Bill Henderson put it recently, he says, to ignore or fall behind technology can mean for a law firm that it runs the risk of commercial ruin, and he says that this axiom applies not just to law firms, but also to law schools who want law firms to hire their graduates. So anyway, so we see tech innovation for sure is growing in importance. It's occurring across different areas, so document search, document retrieval, database creation and analysis, the whole area of big data law, computational law, infrastructure management, and also online dispute resolution. So at CodeX, we have started under the leadership of Pieter Gunst. We have started a database that seeks to map everything that's going on in legal technology. And so this database has currently, I think, over 550 companies that were started in the recent years in the legal tech space. I think Pieter will talk about that a little bit more. And this was a project that Pieter ran with Stanford law students and other contributors. And we're very excited about it. We really sort of want to make this the #1 resource for anyone who wants to learn about early stage innovation in legal tech. All right, so this is just, I won't talk too much about it, but this is just in terms of like new systems and platforms that were created in trying to make legal services more accessible to consumers. And really the main point here is that, there was only one company for a long time that was trying to make legal service more accessible to on Main Street America, and that was Hyatt Legal Services, and then Hyatt Legal Plans. And then as the internet came, we had LegalZoom and Direct Law, and then later Avo. And then we just see it sort of like, particularly between 2012 and 2016, really explode. There's a whole lot of new players in this space, but we see a similar kind of explosion in other areas of legal technology, so be it e-discovery or contract management. And so a real startup boom. And so that's been a trend that's been going on for a good 10 years. I would say in the last a couple of years, we see really sort of the big brains and the big data and the big money coming together in our space. And sort of the big brains, we have, thanks to the work of Nicole, we've been creating new collaborations with our computer science department, where we have these folks like Professor Leskovich and Professor Ree working with us on interesting legal tech research projects. And that's kind of a new phenomenon, I would submit to you. For a long time, the law wasn't really kind of a hot area for research in computer science. And now these guys are sort of discovering this is, there's a wealth of unstructured information and a whole lot of interesting things, how you can apply cutting-edge computer science methods to this kind of body of knowledge. And then there's folks, who are more the hacker types, right? They don't have a legal background. They're not Stanford computer science professors. But they think it's very interesting to start, putting contracts onto the blockchain and see what happens and how can we automate certain processes on the blockchain. Big data law, I mentioned Lex Machina already. They've been really at the forefront of this kind of new movement, using kind of a big data approach in a litigation context, initially focused on IP law. Recently, after the acquisition by LexisNexis, they've expanded into securities law. And it's just an example. There are other players in this area too. We see this approach, this big data approach, also in a contract space now. This company also just one example for many companies in that space that are basically helping parties that are reviewing contracts compare them with large bodies of contracts and to understand, which clauses are kind of, standard clauses, which ones are outliers, and so on. In a big data law, also in the criminal justice system. So we have the criminal justice system has been a kind of black box for a long time. Projects like our smart prosecution project that Nicole will talk about in a minute are trying to kind of open up this black box and trying to provide some more empirical data about really what's going on in the criminal justice space. And then I mentioned big money, so I think that's also a kind of a new development. Legal tech has been a kind of a fringe category from a VC's perspective for a long time. It still is, but there are examples for legal tech companies that got funding from some very reputable Silicon Valley VCs. So I think this coming together of the big data, big money, and big brains, I think will really propel the space forward even more. So for me, really what all this means is that sort of the field of legal informatics has been born. It's been around for a long time, but it was also kind of a fringe area of investigation. But it has become something that really every lawyer has to know about and has to learn about. And it's part of our mission at CodeX to really teach legal informatics and bring the community of thought leaders in the space together. And so what we do is we teach a class every year. Well, actually, we skipped last year, but we'll teach it again in 2017 on legal informatics. I hope you will sign up for the class. It's a really great class, project-driven class, and we bring together law students with students from computer science and the business school to work on new ideas and try to create new insights and new projects in legal technology. We also have created a conference called the Future Law Conference, the CodeX Future Law Conference. That's every year, bringing together really the best and the brightest people in legal technology. Next year, it's going to be on April 6th, so please be sure to attend that conference. And we have our speaker series. Our next event is actually going to be tomorrow. We have Professor Jens Ludwig from the University of Chicago come in, talk about human decisions and machine predictions. He's the director of the crime lab at the University of Chicago. And that's going to happen tomorrow, same time in room 280B. So I'd love to see you there. Oh, OK, so we're in 180 tomorrow. OK, so that's promising to be a really interesting talk, too. And yeah, we also, aside from that, we meet every week in Newcomb. If you want to join us for those meetings, they're open to everyone. You should go on our CodeX website, codex.stanford.edu. Just put your email address here, join upcoming CodeX meetings. And we have every week, we have 1 or 2 presentations by researchers or by startup entrepreneurs who come in and want to present and test their ideas with a group of like-minded folks. So that's my quick introduction. I think maybe we'll keep the questions. Maybe I can take maybe 1 or 2 questions now. Otherwise, we'll keep it for later. Are there any questions now? All right, then let me turn it over to Nicole. You can.
So while that goes up, hi, I'm Nicole Shanahan. I was a residented CodeX fellow here for 2 years and left in August. I am still a fellow, just no longer on campus. I'm here in downtown Palo Alto. And, I'm going to share with you today a little bit about lawyering in the AI age. I just gave this talk to the Association of Business Trial Lawyers a few weeks ago, and their whole dinner meeting was called, "Is AI About to Eat Your Lunch?" So I can't say it was the warmest welcome I've ever received to speak, but it was certainly entertaining and a learning experience for me, just to be able to engage with senior level partners on this topic. So very quickly, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to go through from a law practice standpoint, why should we care about legal AI? How does one build AI generally? And I'm going to spend less time on where to find legal AI because Pieter will discuss that. So the origins of my journey in legal tech have really been based around this idea that transaction costs are a central determinant of how economic activity is organized. We, as lawyers and law students, are engineers in many ways of transaction costs because we share information, we bring people to the table, we help them reach a deal. And that means a lot for society, because that means we can get stuff done. It's great for our economy. And then when you look at technology, what it does, it really also does that. It engineers transaction costs. So what happens when you pair a lawyer with technology? Fundamentally, you might have one of the strongest entities in society in shaping it and growing it, and in lending some stylistic design to it. So I wrote this piece several months ago, and the title was called Legal Technology and Transaction Costs. The Daily Journal thought that they should rename it and get more readers, and in fact they did, I think. The transition to legal AI will happen suddenly. I didn't actually really say that. What I did say was this: when we shift focus away from thinking about legal technology in terms of a lawyer's efficiency to viewing these advancements within the context of socioeconomic organization, we can really truly begin to realize its true significance. And then borrowing from transaction cost theory, what are the three core tenets of legal technology if you're a lawyer, developer, a buyer of these products, or a creator of these products? It's really optimizing for the exchange of information, setting consistent expectations between parties, and mitigating risk. Pretty high level, but in practice can create some amazing results. So our job as a modern legal technologist is to build software that mimics the cognitive processes of lawyers. And this is the 2.0 version of legal tech that Professor Goodenough talks about. We expect that we can produce faster, cheaper, more accurate legal work products. And so I just have three quick examples here. And going back to this, actually, when people ask me, I'm a lawyer in California, I went through the bar, took it, did law school. When people ask me what area of law I practice, I tell them legal tech. And I have three applications as main focuses, but my practice truly deeply is legal technology. So just throwing out a few examples of how to think about this. In the context of e-discovery federal rules, for instance, there's this concept of proportionality. It's a concept, but we don't really have a computational way of achieving proportionality in e-discovery. So there's these requirements. We see them in the text. But how do you convert these into algorithms? How do you convert these into kind of a big data approach? So some of these areas, considering the importance of the issues at stake, the amount in controversy, the parties' relative access to relevant information, these aren't necessarily black and white issues. They're really, in some ways, weighted. And computation is really, really good at weighting things. Like you can literally say, we're going to weight this one higher than this one, and then once you've labeled everything on how you want to weight it, you run it through and you get some output based on those weights. So this is an idea. This was a design I made for Judge Laporte, who sits on the federal circuit. In the context of criminal justice, and what we're really working on with the Smart Prosecution Project is this concept of predictive policing, which really makes me nervous. Because if you know how algorithms work, and if you know how data works, the idea that you can predict precisely a human behavior, it's not really a rational goal. But that being said, there are products on the market that say they could do predictive policing. And no one is reviewing what those algorithms are doing. And some are even proprietary, so you can't even access them. I think we as a legal community need to decide, if we have computers doing our policing for us, we should probably have some standards of reviewing those machines. And we don't. So another one is prosecutor discretion tools. And this is the project here at Stanford, is coming up with tools to help prosecutors. They have an enormous amount of discretion in sentencing, and the DA's office is the single largest inflection point into our prison system. And once that decision happens, it is very hard to undo. So this came out 3 days ago. Vogl, who's a professor here at Stanford, he's on the engineering side, and he's also involved with our Smart Prosecution Project, did a thorough review without having access necessarily to the actual algorithm, but having access to the survey, if you'd be interested in seeing this. This is by NorthPoint, and NorthPoint is a product that is a machine that informs on who should be sentenced and for how long. And this is a lawsuit against NorthPoint saying that this was inherently biased. However, Sharad, after going through the entire algorithm, pulling it apart, realized it may not be that clear. And this is someone who spends his life studying algorithms. I'm not going to go into this, but effectively, if you're interested, this article is in The Guardian, and basically they went through and they said, look, you know, it's not, the factors don't ask, for example, whether the race of the defendant. However, it ended up sentencing African Americans significantly more than whites who committed the exact same crime. So why? And this kind of explains that. So moving away from that, and the third category is patents, and that's what I call kind of my regular practice. And I've spent 12 years working in the patent space. And here you can do practice management, valuation analysis, and licensing strategy. And just a little bit about that. So given for the first time ever, this is all technically feasible, what do we need to know and understand about AI? So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Effectively, if you want to understand just at a very high level conceptually what is AI, you should think about it kind of as a pyramid where machine learning and logic rules, so computational logic, are kind of the foundational pieces of this pyramid. And then someday, in our hypothetical future, there's this concept of general AI, so a machine that could hypothetically produce any intellectual task of a human, any. And so that's somewhere out in the future. But you know, we are today in these bottom parts of working within the context of machine learning and computational logic. And what really makes any of these foundational elements possible today is data and how cheap it is to store, how cheap it is to move, and how easy it is to share in bulk. A little bit about, again, this gets a little bit technical, but computational logic, computational law, these you should think about as if, this, then, that statements. And the best way of applying that is if you want the same thing done every time, you know, such as filing a piece of paper in a certain file, it really works good with more clerical tasks. And then with machine learning, we now are kind of looking at, well, what if we want to replicate an expert level task? So the difference between what I think would be a docket clerk or a secretary within an organization and replacing it with an expert who's coming in and doing real deep analysis on an issue. And machine learning allows us to do that. It's categorized as supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And there's many nuances in these methodologies and approaches, but from a very high level, you know, this is how it's separated. And you might have heard of deep neural networks and neural nets. That most popularly we've come across AlphaGo. Google's AlphaGo it was a machine that beat a grandmaster in the game of Go. And just to put things into perspective, the game of Go is one of the highest intellectually engaging games. There's more possibilities than there are atoms in the universe. And that's pretty significant for a machine to be able to compete at that level. So right now, we're in the machine learning, computational logic age. Development of these tools is painful and slow, but many experts believe that, you know, as we work through this phase, we might come upon general AI, and it might feel rather sudden. And so I got to thinking, can you predict this transition? What would COAST do? There's this concept of cosine mapping. We build AI in verticals today, and one day when a machine can compete across multiple verticals, 2, 3, 4 verticals, that's when I think we'll be on the path to general AI. And that is all I have. So will general AI replace lawyers? No comments. Okay, thank you. Are your slides on here? Oh, you're not doing slides. Okay, go. Oh, yes, of course.
You had a good slides with the tech index. Let me take care of that for you. Okay, hi everyone. Good afternoon. First of all, good choice to spend your time here today. If you're not convinced by Roland's intro that the legal technology is going to massively change this profession in the next couple of decades, then take it from me. So my name is Pieter Gunst, that there is Tony Lai. We actually met on our first day at Stanford here, August 24th, 2010. We've been working together ever since. Legal technology for us is a business and pleasure. Tony is going to talk about our business. I am not. I'm going to talk about Legal Tech Index, a project that was mentioned a couple of times before. It's a database with almost now 600 legal tech companies. It's actually 1,200 of them in the database, but the ones that went bankrupt are not currently displayed. It's really interesting culling these data sets, as you can imagine. So Legal Tech Index is a teaching project, and it kind of jives very nicely with what CodeX is trying to do in the world. When Tony and I landed here at Stanford, we were attorneys, we had practice, we were in big law. We understood that that system was not working as well as we thought it could, and we decided to build a company on that. But one of the problems that we had is that we were lawyers and we did not understand fundamentally technology. And I promise you, when we started getting the first engineers working on this project, legal.io, that Tony will talk about, in our dorm room, and we said, hey, we need this feature, and they said, hey, that's going to take 5 months. We said, why? We don't understand. And so we needed to ramp up our own internal knowledge about what it means to build technology for the legal industry specifically. And so I shot around an email to Stanford Law School that kind of went like, hey, I'm going to learn how to program. You should join me if you're interested. By the way, if you don't join me, you're not going to have a job in 10 years. It was a compelling pitch. I had 75 people who joined me for that. And we started doing stuff that was very much not AI. It was, how do I write my first line of HTML? Oh God, I can do that in a text editor, and I can bring a website on screen. That's kind of cool. And we went into the very, very, very basics of what it takes to build something online. And then with the people that stuck around and were interested and were ready for that kind of stuff, we went deeper and deeper. So we did this for 3 years. It was called Code is Law. Didn't happen last year because work is taken a lot of our mind space. But what we did and how it evolved in the last couple of years is we started out, okay, we're going to teach about HTML. Then we're going to add some color to it. Let's learn about what CSS is. Oh, you want this to be interactive? Great, we'll learn about the fundamentals of JavaScript. And once we've done all of that, we'll move to some of the modern web frameworks. We used Rails. And let's build a real thing. What are we going to build? So we had a bunch of law students come together at Code is Law, and they prototyped this idea of why don't we build a kind of simple application, which is going to be a database of legal tech companies, because that also helps us to kind of see what's out there and to keep track of that. And so that's what we did. So the URL is it's techindex.law.stanford.edu. There are multiple people in this room that have helped build it. I'm seeing Patrick's there. Oh, we have Kevin, are you somewhere here? So in the back. So this is a completely open source project. It's on GitHub. You can get to the data set if you want it. It's not proprietary. If you see anything that we don't have, you can submit it, and we will review it, and we'll add it to the data set. Thomson Reuters has decided to build a publication around it, and they're now publishing the new startups that are being added to this database. All this just starting from a student project and people that kind of in love with legal technology and decided to do something with it. And it's that kind of catalyst that we are trying to create. Because some of these code is law students went off to do CS degrees, right? And they now come to me talking about how good they are at C#, and I'm like, that's amazing, right? And it's really this new generation of legal engineers and legal process engineers that we're creating today. And a lot of that is happening at the center, and it's very excited. And I hope that you get a chance to join some of these weekly meetings. They're really inspiring, and that you find a way to bring legal technology in your practice, because it's definitely not going to go away. Thank you.
So hi everyone, thank you all for being here this afternoon. So as Pieter says, my name's Tony. We met on the first day here at Stanford Law School 6 years ago. And since then, we've been in love with legal technology. No small thanks to CodeX. So just to give a bit more background, Pieter and I were both lawyers. We joined the LLM program here. So we were lawyers for several years in a big law firm. And we came to Stanford with an experience of what legal practice was like in a big law firm. And some of those crisis moments that Roland put up there, the crisis rhetoric, sorry, that was actually being talked about 6 years ago already, but in hushed tones. But I could sort of tell that the writing was kind of on the wall for the way that I was being trained as a big firm lawyer to do what I was told, to keep my head down, and to actually spurn technology. They were kind of, we kind of pride ourselves on being 5 years behind the curve, because then nothing bad will happen if we adopt something. And that was so incredibly frustrating as an associate. I didn't make it to partner. I looked up and I saw a lot of wonderful people, but nobody who I really wanted to mimic. Because I wanted to use technology in my practice. I wanted to be able to scale myself. And I knew that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lawyers in my position also wanted to use technology to scale themselves. And it wasn't just about us as lawyers. We are obviously of the Daniel Pink generation looking for autonomy and mastery and purpose. And we weren't finding that in our environment. But it was also about the fact that we were seeing technology changing everything in every other industry in terms of democratization, in terms of access, and in terms of AI. Interestingly, I saw a Wired interview between Joey Ito and President Obama a couple of weeks back. And he talks about AI, except he says, we don't call it AI, we call it extended intelligence. It's about how we use machine learning to extend the intelligence of humans. And maybe there is going to be this interim gap between sudden general AI when machines take over everything, and this notion of an extended intelligence that he talked about building societal values into AI. And this is really the problem that we are most interested in. It's that gap between the present and what lawyers are currently facing, and that moment when general AI happens and lawyers won't be necessary anymore. There's going to be this period of extended intelligence when we're going to be able to take the best of technology, find ways to gather data using that technology so that we are embedding the right kinds of societal values into the technology that we use to operate the legal system. That's why we started Legal.io. Legal.io, it falls into that category of legal infrastructure that Roland was talking about. And basically, we're trying to build marketplace infrastructure for the legal service industry. That's what Legal.io is doing, from intake to outcome. And Pieter will go into, I'll let Pieter talk a little bit more detail about some of the cool things we're doing with machine learning. But essentially, at core, we're trying to say to the legal industry, particularly those parts of the legal industry right now who are serving that justice gap that isn't getting access to legal help because of cost, because it's too scary, because it's confusing. And we're saying to this group, we're saying technology isn't your enemy. You can adopt technology. I know you're seeing LegalZoom and Avo and Rocket Lawyer and all of these companies out there who are taking technology and then they're sidestepping you. They're sidestepping you as legal nonprofits that are serving your communities. They're sidestepping you as lawyers because they're saying, you don't need a lawyer. They're sort of marketing to that. And a lot of lawyers are coming to us. A lot of these legal service organizations that we're working with are coming to us and saying, what is the future? Where do we fit into this future? You know, we have this embedded position within societies working with these community partners, but we're struggling under the volume of demand that people are coming to us with. We're struggling under lawyers sort of, you know, being drawn away to these new online legal marketplaces. And we say, that's okay. We've taken the technology behind those marketplaces, behind an Amazon, behind a LegalZoom, and we're saying, here, take it, work with it. You have a two-sided marketplace already. You have a network of providers, and you have a network of people who come to you looking for help. You're having to turn away many, many, many of them because you are not able to pick up the phone. You don't have a decent online capacity. You don't have any flat fee services offerings. People are looking for that security, that transparency, that certainty. And in today's day and age, you can use technology to extend the intelligence, not just of your lawyers, but also of your legal support staff. So this is a key part of the data sets that we're collecting to extend the intelligence of these legal service organizations. It's client intent. They have hundreds of thousands of people coming to them every single year, even just a city-based organization. And they have that data around what people have asked for and what they ended up getting matched to and what price that cost. And that's all existing in their old clunky databases. And we're saying, let us work with you. Let's take that data and let's really understand client intent so we can get that person who comes to your doors and get them to the right solution in 1/10 of the time. Let's save you, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs in terms of how you're managing this service delivery network. And let's bring you up to speed with some of the technology that's really driving this efficiency and this effectiveness in all these other industries. So that's what Legal.io is doing. We're working with bar associations at the statewide and the local level. We're working with legal aid organizations where this all started off. We did a lot of research with legal aid organizations trying to figure out where they sent the 4 out of 5 people who they turn away from their doors every day. And then we're starting to work with law firms as well, who are starting to think of their own operations less as a brick and mortar firm with lawyers who are employed by them, but more as a network of expertise that includes both expert lawyers, but also legal technologists, and also paralegals, and also project-based lawyers. And you're seeing this in the way that firms are starting to think about how they integrate their international operations. And they're starting to think like networks. And so this is really where we see our role in supporting the legal industry as a whole in thinking more like networks, thinking more like network orchestrators, and really harnessing the data that they already have to really streamline their processes and extend their intelligence. Pieter, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about some of the details of that. Nicole did set you up.
Yeah, Nicole. Apparently I was going to talk about AI today. Yeah. No. This is the podium mic? Never seen a mic like that. Yeah. Cool. So AI in the law, a super interesting use case that we are pushing. That's maybe just interesting to augment what Tony was talking about and what Nicole set up. One of the things that we've built when we started looking at technology to help clients initially, one of the things that we saw is that if you go to LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer, every website out there, it's okay. Do you have a business issue, a real estate issue? Like, what's your issue? Classify it, right? We're going to ask you a number of questions. You get pushed in that workflow. And one of the design paradigms that we wanted is you're not supposed to know, right? And so what we started doing, and you'll see that in every implementation that we do, one of the things that we started doing is we wanted to take away that categorization. So we collected about initially 25,000 data points of people in their own words describing their legal issue. I'm very unhappy at home. I don't know if I can do this anymore, right? And we manually tagged them. Very, very long, fun nights, right? And the way we leverage this, and this is one very concrete example of machine learning in the industry, is when someone comes to us, they're asked in your own words, what do you think, what are you needing help with? And then our system classifies that, algorithm number 1, family law divorce. sends it to a second subsystem that for that particular implementation, for example, all the attorneys of this particular state bar, right, will rank all of them. This is not a machine learning problem. This is a search problem. Will rank all these attorneys based on vectors like, do they do this practice area, proximity, but proximity is a very difficult notion in legal, right? Are we talking proximity or are we talking jurisdiction? Can you derive jurisdiction? And that is a machine learning problem from the original utterance of the user, right? Then once you rank these attorneys, you send them text messages and emails, hey, someone needs your help, right? Every organization has different workflows. Sometimes it's a one-on-one. Sometimes it's we're gonna blast this to 100 attorneys. We accommodate all of that in our software. And then, most importantly, and this is done not enough in the legal profession, we follow up to check what happened. We ask the attorney, did this lead to an engagement? How much time did this cost you? How much money did you make? And those data points we feed in at the beginning of the funnel, and we're now reaching a point that if you come to us and explain in your own words any legal issue, we are likely to be able to tell you what this is about, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, what the 5 best lawyers are in our networks that can help you with this, right? And to give you, kind of a juxtaposition, some organizations that traditionally telephone spreadsheet-based get calls from clients, hey, I need help, can you suggest me someone? On average, it will take them 2 to 3 days to place you with an attorney. Our record is 17 seconds, because once you do that with text messages and automation, right, you can create these very instantaneous connections between attorneys and clients. And it's kind of what the clients today demand. And we don't really care whether you have no income or whether you're a huge corporation. We think that that level of service, for a legal system to work properly should be given to all. And that's what we've been building, and it's been very tremendously fun. And it's those kind of technologies that indeed, 5 years ago when we arrived here, you couldn't do this. But now IBM, Amazon, Microsoft, they all have platforms that allow you to build on top of it. And it's becoming very accessible for someone who has a legal background and interest in technology, wants to put in some work. Like, you can be building this stuff in less than 6 months, I guarantee you, with the state of technology today. So isn't that kind of a positive and fun message? We should try to make things like that happen.
All right, hi guys. My name is Pablo Arredondo. I'm a fellow at the Stanford Center for Legal Informatics and vice president of legal research at CaseText. I'm here with our founder and CEO, Jake Heller, who's also a fellow. CaseText is trying to revolutionize legal research, and we have built a comprehensive database of judicial opinions and are now building tools and functionality on top of that to basically make it better. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to jump right into something that we recently released called Kara. All right. Sorry, I got to minimize this. So the thinking behind Kara is that traditional research is done using keyword searches, right? An attorney will read a brief, like the one I'm about to open here. This is the summary judgment motion that was filed in the Uber class action litigation, right? The Uber employees suing to say that we should be called, Uber drivers suing to say that we should be called employees, not independent contractors. Now, what is happening all over the country right now with traditional research systems is attorneys are reading briefs like these, and then they're constructing long Boolean queries to try to teach their search engine what the context is, right? So it's employee and automobile and driver, et cetera, right? And though Boolean searching is very powerful, there are limitations to it, right? Those terms are often over and under inclusive, and there's only so much you can do with that system. They're also using Shepard's and Keysight to do sort of direct citation analysis to say what cases cite to these cases, which is also useful, but just one possible way to do it. So what Kara does is instead of taking a keyword, I'm just showing this to let you guys know this is a normal brief. Kara lets you treat an entire brief as a query. That's the entire interface, what I just showed you right there. You drag and drop the brief. We data mine that brief, take a citation fingerprint to see what cases you're talking about it. run latent semantic analysis to do a topic modeling about what the brief is about. And then, quite simply, we present you results. I'll scroll through a few here. You'll see this first one, the holding, is about drivers and their length of their tenure and the impact that that has on contractor status. This Estrada one has to do with FedEx drivers and what they are. I particularly like this third one, which talks about whether the company has control of the color of the socks and the style of the hair of the drivers. I think anyone who's used Uber knows that there is no control over socks or hair in the Uber dynamic. And so what you're seeing here, though, are these cases are not just about California employment law, not just about the distinction between independent contractors and employees, but they're really looking at that issue directly in the context of drivers, right? It sort of fits the fact pattern of the brief. And I submit to you guys that that's an area where we really need to improve our legal research tools, right? Most tools out there are pretty good at giving you the big case that everyone knows about that sets up the structure, right? Everyone can show you where the Empire State Building is. But a lot of your elbow grease as attorneys, those of you who don't follow the path into the light of legal tech and are working in law, is going to be spent trying to find cases that fit specifically to your fact pattern, right? And so that's where a tool like Kara, which utilizes the huge amount of information encoded in the brief, can be very useful. And I mentioned earlier that Shepard's is one of the ways that associates currently do legal research. Our tool doesn't rely solely on direct citation relationships. We also look at something you might call soft citation relationships or co-referencing. This is a situation where case A doesn't cite case B, but you see case A and case B together a lot in string cites, right? So what's happening behind the scenes there? A judge with his expertise, and for all our talk of AI, BI, biological intelligence, I don't know what the word is for human intelligence. Right now, it's much, much better than our best machines. A judge is much, much better than our best computer at reading two cases and saying, even though these don't cite
insanely expensive. The second problem and related problem is that the way that these companies approached creating these databases of legal information is inherently expensive and inefficient. The way that behind the scenes it's happening in Westlaw and LexisNexis, where they're providing you Shepard's or case summaries or head notes, behind all of that is an army of thousands of people who's adding information to each and every case that gets published, thousands of cases every day, right? And it's not a surprise that they do this, take this kind of approach. It's because they are publishers, right? Before they were online, they were offline. Before they were websites, they were books. Shepard's was a volume of books that some people, even to this day, still use. And as a result of hiring thousands and thousands of people to add information to a database, you're going to have a system that is extremely expensive, right? Because you have to pay thousands of people. And it's also not necessarily going to be the highest quality, deepest information, right? A lot of Westlaw editors are obviously great people, good lawyers, but they're not going to be the best patent lawyer in the country, right? The best patent lawyer in the country is not going to work for Westlaw to write case summaries. They're going to practice. And we started CaseText with the thought, what could we do with maybe a team of 20 as a startup, and with just a few $1 million, compared to the billions of dollars that Westlaw and LexisNexis have. Could we, with those kinds of resources, create something that a company of 20,000 people, 20,000 editors makes? And the approach that we took, and this is kind of evident in if you use the platform of CaseText, if you dig into, like, for example, searching or reading a case, is we have found that by engaging a mix of data science and a crowdsourcing, we've been able to build a legal research resource that is in some ways the same, if not better, than Westlaw and LexisNexis, but to do so much cheaper that, except for some of the premium tools on CaseText, it is 100% free. Like, finding cases is 100% free. Reading cases is 100% free. Something that I don't have time to go into, but we also believe is part of our social justice mission. So, for example, instead of reading a case summary that may have been produced by an anonymous editor at LexisNexis, what you may instead find on CaseText are all the different ways that the courts have summarized the case you might be reading right now. If you're trying to answer the question whether or not Uber drivers are employees versus contractors, you can read how the 7th Circuit, the 9th Circuit, and the Northern District of California have all summarized this case. The 7th Circuit saying that this case we're reading right now, Estrada v. FedEx Ground, holding single work area drivers were employees rather than independent contractors under California law. That's really useful because the way you use summaries is not like to skip out reading the case. It's like, should I read this case if I'm the plaintiff's attorney trying to argue that Uber's drivers are employees rather than contractors? Heck yeah. And by the way, you can use this in class if you're ever in that circumstance where you're like, I don't know, didn't read all the cases before class. Never happens, right? Not Stanford. If you're ever in that circumstance, if you ever pull up a case, say like, you just type it in up here, pick it out, and then read what the summary is, how other courts have summarized that case, so you can get a very good understanding of what that case is actually about. So a little quick time saver. Other things too that you can do with data science and data mining. For example, this case has 50 pages in it. But what parts of the case are the most important? Well, a quick proxy for that is if you have hundreds of attorneys writing about this case and hundreds of judges citing to this opinion, they don't just cite the whole case. As those of you on law review or wrote briefs, et cetera, know, you pin cite. You cite to a particular page, right? We use that information to say, of all the pages in this case, page 10 is the most important. It's the one that everybody's citing to. We have a heat map that focuses your attention directly on the right part of the case, so you dig right into where the conversation is happening, not where just starting at the top and reading through all the boilerplate language, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or instead of reading the kind of summaries and pontifications of, again, anonymous lawyers, what about if you read from literally the three best, sorry, this screen size is kind of small, but what if you read from the very, very best attorneys on the topic of employment law? For example, Jackson Lewis, an employment law firm whose, I think they're saying is all we do is work. That's like, literally all they do is employment law. If they've written about this case, Estrada v. FedEx, we found that out, and we found out the articles that they've written online about Estrada v. FedEx and brought that for you so you can read it without even leaving where you are in the case, get a deeper understanding of what's happening in Estrada v. FedEx, right? And the idea being that if you want to have a very deep understanding of what the law is about, don't go to the anonymous editors of Westlaw or LexisNexis. Don't try to read the whole case from beginning to end. If you have to read 50 cases, it's 4 a.m. and you have a brief due in 5 hours. You just don't have time for that. Instead, you might be able to find a very short summary written by an extremely good lawyer or by a judge, or jump to the right part of the case using the heat map and use that as a place to start your research, right? So we are through technologies like Kara really pushing the boundaries of new ways to interface and search the law to find new cases that your opponent may be hiding from you, that you may be missing in your own draft, that may supplement your law review article, your brief, your brief or your memo that you might be writing for a partner when you work for a law firm. And through other technologies, a combination of crowdsourcing and data science, we're able to elevate for the researcher deep information about accessing, reading, and understanding cases that is really difficult to find right now. And the best part for us is that we're able to do it as a team of 20, not a team of 20,000, so we can offer a lot of these services, not as our competitors do, pricing out kind of the bottom of the market, the solo attorneys who have to, but I don't mean bottom in a pejorative way, I just mean in terms of people who are representing people from low incomes, people who are representing people who are falsely accused of lawyers representing people falsely accused of a crime. We can instead provide that service very affordably and without compromising on quality. So that's a lot of what's behind our thinking of case text. So that's kind of some of the bigger picture. And then if you have any questions, I guess we have just a few minutes for that.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone has a? All right, sir.
So, okay. Bringing this back to the interests of many of the people in this room about the future role of lawyers, I'd like to ask maybe two of the panelists, the two who are most excited to answer this question. AI is clearly the most disruptive technology entering into the legal space. The food of AI is data. How would you respond to the idea that the future role of lawyers and legal firms is to store, manage, maintain data of legal entities and its interaction with the world and the technology that's out there?
Very interesting question. So The question asks like whether the future role of law firms will be to start to collate data, collect data, and use that to feed into, for example, an artificial intelligent process. I actually haven't considered that question deeply. I do know a few things. First, it's absolutely true that data is going to be the biggest differentiator between different legal technology companies, between law firms. For Kara, for example, the way that we're able to provide such on-point cases about drivers who are, employees versus contractors in California, right? How are we able to find those cases? Well, the answer is we have, at this point, nearly 370,000 articles have been submitted, like the ones I showed you, from different law firms and lawyers to our platform. Those lawyers writing these deep legal memos, like Pablo was saying, will sometimes say, hey, case A and case B are very, very related to each other, right? These two cases are extremely on point. If you care about whether Uber drivers are employees versus contractors, check out FedEx. It's a very analogous situation, right? And what you're able to do with that is kind of train the machine to give responses that are highly intelligent and based off of these deep connections between two things that may otherwise, through, for example, a keyword search or through kind of like rooting your way through the laws, as you probably do now in traditional legal research, may otherwise miss. And I do think it is quite possible. And so I should say, I guess, the point there being that the like neurons in the brain, or like axons in the brain, the connections between two pieces of information defines kind of how intelligent you become. The more connections, kind of the smarter you become. Having more and more data gives you a bigger brain and gives us the ability, for example, through this crowdsourced information, gives us the ability to give these highly expert recommendations based on this kind of data. And I don't doubt that some law firms that are better at retaining data, retaining information, who write thousands and thousands of memos and briefs, et cetera, if they were to take that information and train their own machine learning and artificial intelligence processes, I do think they have an edge. Potentially using technologies like ours and like others that they're being created. They may not be technology experts, but they may become data experts. I think it's a very interesting point.
Tony's going to also try to give an answer, and I wanted to give a chance to the gentleman, Noah, from Monkey, who wanted to make an announcement too, and then Susan to just introduce yourself. And we have to wrap up.
So I just want to build on that very briefly. One of the interesting things about data as law firms can use it is they can use it for the practice of law and improving intelligence around their substantive practical legal capabilities, but also crucially around the business of law. And I think this is where law firms that will really be able to get ahead, it's in meeting client expectations around the new realities of business in the legal service industry. And that is understanding your pricing, understand what it's going to cost, understand what is the most effective resource to achieve the outcome that I want. I'm not that interested in the output in terms of hours that you're working for me. I'm interested in the outcome. And the law firms are able to manage that business data and connect the different siloed data sets within finance, within marketing, within business development, within client acceptance. Those law firms who best marshal that data are really going to be the ones who can use legal technologies to really put themselves apart as well.
Thank you, Roland. My name is Noah Aaron. Along with Robert DePhillips here, we run a very mature startup up in Marin County. We're one of the largest filers of legal documents into courts in the United States. And so we have a boatload of data that comes in every day. So when we talk about the critical mass of crowdsourced data and what you could do with it, from machine learning and to God knows where else, we are really focused right now on developing our products. And so anyone that's in this room that's interested from an operations standpoint, from a data science standpoint, from a product development standpoint, we're hiring right now. So this is totally shameless, but I asked to borrow a minute, so please come say hi. Thanks. One legal. You gotta come talk to me.
Great. Okay, is there maybe another question from the audience? No, Susan, you just want to?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Susan Salkind. I'm the residential CodeX fellow here this year, and I guess all that you need to know about me right now is that if you are inspired and want to have more of this, which we encourage you to do, My email is up here, ssalkind@law.stanford.edu. Of course, go to our website, like Roland said at the beginning, codex.stanford.edu. And there you'll find the best way to connect with us, which is by signing up for our meeting announcements so that you know how to remote in or come over to room N102 on Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. We meet most Thursdays. Tomorrow, we're actually having Jens Ludwig speak, as Roland mentioned, so we'll be back on again next Thursday, October 27th. Email me, see any of us. We're more than happy to get you involved in what we like to think of as a legal informatics movement. Thanks so much for coming today.